What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MMA show presented by Run Peer Sports here on the Run Peer Sports YouTube channel. I'm your host, as usual, for this show, Draftcheat, and today joined by Titletown and special guest, the Sports Keg, filling in for Joey Werk. Keg, our first show together. What's going on, man? And I'm assuming you're excited for what should be a fantastic UFC 263.
Yeah, there aren't many better things in life than talking about high-level MMA. So I'm excited to be here, glad to do the show with you guys, and yeah, let's get it rolling.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be a great card, 14 fights, 3 5-round fights, 2 title fights, and just a great day of sports in general. I got to be honest, we got baseball all day long. The Euros are kicking off if you're into soccer, golf, of course, so great time to be a Run Peer Sports member. So please do join us if you're interested. RPS Heater 25 will get you 25% off your first month's payment, and give us a like and subscribe to the channel as well. Helps us provide these free videos pretty much each and every day. All sports. We do have premium content, of course, on the site, but help us out. Hit that like button, and we'll keep coming at you every UFC pay-per-view card and everything else as well. Titletown, what's going on, man?
Yeah, what's going on? I always love hopping on these shows, talking fights. We've had a lot of success on these shows too. Last card was Charles Oliveira card. Got a lot right there. That was very fun. And I mean, this card is going to be awesome. And not only the title fights and stuff, why I love the pay-per-views even more is it's just so much better with the fans in the stands for MMA. They just bring every sport, they just bring so much energy and atmosphere. And we're going to have a couple really, really good fights, a couple rematches. Nate Diaz back on the card, back fighting. I know he has a big fan base. We're talking about it a little in Discord. So people are going to be on both sides of a lot of these too, which is always fun in MMA. So I'm excited to dive into it. Title fight should be awesome. And the prelims too. I mean, there's going to be a lot of fun prelims too. So it's going to be a fun one and a long night of fights. So I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, should be a banger of a card, I think. Kind of up and down. I think there's a lot of good fights, and hopefully we're kind of over the, fights getting canceled post lock due to COVID stuff, right? I think we're kind of mostly probably moved past that. It still could happen, but especially kind of this time last year and kind of throughout 2020. A lot of times people kind of got screwed by late scratches, stuff like that. So hopefully we're beyond that. Hopefully that doesn't happen on this card and we get a good full 14 fights. And we're going to get some good ones in here for sure. We'll go through all 14. Of course, we'll spend more time kind of as we get closer to the end of the card and some of the bigger fights. But we will talk about all 14 fights. Keg will kind of talk about the betting angles, title the DFS side of it, and I'll chime in where I find appropriate as well. This card rather starts off with a heavyweight fight, which is kind of in my opinion, a fun way to start a card. Although for DFS purposes, it can be a little scary, right? To fade the first heavyweight fight, because we do often see kind of early finishes. So though in this one, we have Carlos Felipe and Jake Collier. I don't think the highest level of heavyweight fighters. We have seen these guys kind of, have longer fights, at least for heavyweight guys. Looks like Collier maybe lost a little bit of weight. He was a big dude, not in the greatest shape, and still not, but maybe a little bit better than his last fight. Anyway, Felipe coming in here about minus 160 to minus 170, depending on where you look. I'll throw it to you first, Keg. What do you see going down between Carlos Felipe and Jake Collier?
Yeah, from a betting perspective, I don't really have much interest here. I mean, Jake Collier has fought one legitimate UFC heavyweight a couple of fights back against Tom Aspinall, and Aspinall made Collier look like he should be fighting in an Applebee's parking lot rather than an arena, right? So now, he did look better, Collier, in his last fight against John Vellante, but to be fair, if you can't beat that version of John Vellante, then you shouldn't even be able to fight in LFA or Cage Warriors, never mind the UFC. So, he's a normal low-level heavyweight. He swings with heavy hands like most low-level guys do. His cardio doesn't seem to be much of anything after a round. But he has taken money. He opened up around plus 180. I think he's down to like plus 140-ish now. So I guess I understand the move, considering that they're both low-level heavyweights. Carlos Felipe, he seems better than Collier right now. He has a couple UFC wins over better heavyweight competition. He beat Justin Tafa, beat Jorgen De Castro, but still, I'm not incredibly impressed with either. So if you're asking me who wins the fight, I'll side with Carlos Felipe because he's shown me more. But from a betting perspective, it's a complete pass for me.
Yeah, I get that. For me, these heavyweight fights are kind of hard to break down, right? They're usually not super technical fighters. It's hard to really break it down from that perspective. I do like that Felipe is 7 years the junior of Collier, frankly. I think that's could be an advantage. Obviously, these guys kind of take a lot of damage each time they step into the ring. So yeah, I'm with you. I'll lean Felipe. I do think this fight has a chance to go the distance, though, Tito. Which, if you're fading it for DFS, right, that's what you want. You want this fight to go to the distance because I don't think these guys are going to land that many strikes. Usually, heavyweights kind of slow down. Although these guys have been fairly active, strikers in their UFC fights. So, Tito, what are you seeing here from a DFS perspective? Both fighters. I guess Felipe is kind of expensive, 8,700. Collier coming in at 7,500. How much interest do you have in these guys for DFS purposes?
Yeah, so it is a low-level heavyweight fight, but as you did say, these guys for heavyweights, they throw a decent amount of volume.
Yeah, they do.
With Felipe throwing 4.42 significant strikes per minute, Collier throwing 4.92 significant strikes per minute. And as Keg said, Collier's got some steam throughout the week. He actually looked pretty good in weigh-ins yesterday from where he did last fight. I was very impressed.
Compared to where he did last fight. That needs to be.
Yes, but which is important because, he did beat a bad John Vellante, but it was improvements from what we've seen previously. Getting beat by Tom Aspinall, there's no shame in that. Obviously, how he did get beat is a little tough, but Tom Aspinall is going to be a problem in this division for a long time. Jorgen De Castro, he had one of the worst UFC stints. And then you saw Justin Tafa lose last week too. Or 2 weeks ago, maybe it was. So Carlos Felipe doesn't have too many big wins on his record either. You look at the prices and DraftKings just makes it pretty easy for us. It's plus 125 to go the distance. I'm not paying 8,700 for Carlos Felipe on a card with the top tier is so loaded, as we'll get to later. And I think Jay Collier is a very live dog. He throws good calf kicks. Carlos Felipe, he's known for his pressuring. That's going to be very important for him. He's going to have to pressure Collier. Otherwise, he's going to get his legs eaten up. It's the one thing Collier is best at. And at 7,500 in a fight that we expect to go to decision, at that price tag, he's very, very live. I'm going to have some interest in Collier as a dog. I like some favorites on the card later. And if it's a huge favorite heavy card and you get one or two dogs that get it done, even a 72-point win might be enough. So give me the dog in this one for DFS. Even if he does win a decision, though, if a Vettori or a Moreno or another dog, there's other dogs that have a lot more upside. So it's more so a favorite heavy card. If they win, you get this win right here. So he'll be in my player pool. I'm not paying 8,700 for Felipe, though.
Makes a lot of sense. We'll move on to the next fight on the card. That is Luigi Vendramini and Faris Ziam. This one pretty much a toss-up in terms of the odds at this time. Ziam a slight favorite, coming in at minus 120-ish or so. One thing I noticed between these two, I do expect a striking battle between these two fighters. Ziam has a significant height and reach advantage, especially a height advantage. He's 5-6 inches taller. If you look at sometimes they say that in the their heights are listed, but if you look at like the ceremonial weigh-in photos, man, Ziam just towers over him. It's really, really noticeable. You don't see a height difference that's significant very often. So between two strikers, that's usually something that, I think can be significant. Keg, how do you see Ziam here and Vendramini going down?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty tough fight to call because both guys looked pretty solid in their last fight. Like you said, Ziam is basically a range striker, and he likes to use that weird frame that he has for the division. And I get it because we're talking about a kid that's almost 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, and he fights at 155 pounds. So he's a hard nut to crack stylistically, but he's basically a range striker that stays on the outside. He's got a decent striking game, a solid check hook. underrated jiu-jitsu game. Now, he did drop his UFC debut to Don Match, but he came back with a nice win over Jamie Malarkey. For a 24-year-old kid, I think he's a solid prospect, but I think he's got a little bit more work to do in developing his overall game. And on the flip side, Luigi Vendramini has a much more conventional lightweight frame. He is at a 2-inch reach disadvantage, but he's a monster when he smells blood in the water. He's an explosive fighter. He's got close to 100% finish rate when he wins a fight. He has power, solid technique. And, he made his debut at 170 pounds against Elizio Zaleski. And while he lost the fight, I thought it was more competitive than I thought it would be. So I think it's a dog or pass spot for me personally. Yeah. Both these kids are going to make tremendous strides from fight to fight because they're still learning. So, the fight opened up -110, I think, on both sides. So we've seen money come in on Ziam. Last time I checked, he was around -130. And at that price, I think you got to take the plus 115 on Luigi Vendramini or you pass the fight.
I think that makes sense. One question I have here. So I think Ziam's going to want to try to keep this at range, right? Kind of, I think if the fight goes his way, obviously he wants the knockout, but I could see him winning kind of on points, right? If he's able to keep the range and outpoint Vendramini, I could see him kind of winning that way. I think that's his likely path to victory. The question for me is, can Vendramini kind of, walk through some of that range fighting and make it a little bit dirtier, kind of get inside. If he can, I think he has more power, right? Is that how you see it, Keg? Where Vendramini may be more likely to finish this fight in a flourish than Ziam is?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So how much power do you think Ziam has? Like,
I don't know.
Is Vendramini going to have to respect that completely, or can he kind of get in there, do you think?
I think it's going to be harder for him to figure out how to fight a guy with such a big frame. Yeah. I don't think Vendramini's worried about getting starched. Do you?
Yeah. No, I think he's going to come out hot round one. I mean, he's in all 10 of his fights. He's a finish or be finished type of guy.
I kind of like him for DFS title.
Oh, yeah, I like him a lot at 79. This fight in general, I mean, but he has also shown the later this fight goes, the more it does favor for us because we've seen, Vendramini is going to come out hot. I do think Vendramini, he could mix in his wrestling and his ground game too. We have seen Faraz, he was controlled on the ground for a long period of time against Jamie Malarkey. And you don't want to stand at range again with Faraz. He has very good low kicks, the reach advantage, like you guys said. So Luigi's got to make this a dirty fight, close the distance. And I'm expecting a really hot round one. And at 7,900, he has very, very big upside because he can get a finish at any time, whereas you don't say that too often about someone in that price range. Yep. -140 to end inside the distance. I saw this morning Luigi Vendramini's getting a little steam. He's at +102 now on DraftKings, whereas Faraz is -115. It's a good fight to target for DFS for sure, expected to end inside the distance. But I lean the dog too with Kagan, Luigi Vendramini. I think he has more upside. And he's going to come out hot for sure, but this is going to be a really, really fun fight.
Yeah, I think all that analysis seems on point to me. I think Vendramini's got a decent chance maybe to finish this one early. If he can't, I do like for us to kind of control the fight as it goes deeper into the second or third round. Let's move on to the next fight on the card. That is Chase Hooper and Steven Peterson. Chase Hooper, he of the body of an 8-year-old. I'm not a Chase Hooper guy. I'm really not. I like betting against Chase Hooper. I'd like betting against him here again. I'm back on the anti-Chase Hooper train. Give me some Steven Peterson at -115 or so. Hooper I just don't see it with him. His striking is poor. He has no power in his hands, and his wrestling's not even good, right? He's like a pure grappler who lacks strength to kind of get it to the mat in the first place. Steven Peterson, nothing special, right? Kind of a journeyman, win one, lose one, that type of fighter. I like him here though. I feel like it could be a trap. I think UFC probably wants Chase Hooper to win this fight, but I'm taking Peterson here. Keg, what do you see between Peterson and Chase Hooper?
Yeah, the fight, whenever Chase Hooper fights, it comes down to one thing really. he's really, really bad at punching people in the face.
No, I want to box this guy. If Siege will never box me, I want Chase Hooper.
And I'll tell you what, I think you nailed it, bro. The kid is a grappler with a solid jiu-jitsu game, but he lacks the strength to actually get you to the ground.
I know. I don't see what he really brings to the table. I just got to be honest.
His striking game is horrific, right? So the question is Steven Peterson good enough to exploit Chase Hooper on the feet? Now, I'm not a Steven Peterson fan by any means.
I don't think really he has that many fans.
Against a real MMA fighter, I would fade Peterson, no questions asked, right? He just isn't a highly skilled at MMA. But, you know, in a fight where all he has to do is basically avoid getting taken down, can he do that? I guess he could. I'm not confident about it, but yeah, I guess he should be able to beat Chase Hooper. I'll lean Peterson, but my money will not be within 1,000 miles of this fight.
No, mine will be. I know he's not the most highly skilled, but he is like he's a grown man, if you will, not a grown ass man, but at least a grown man who's strong, who certainly has trained takedown defense for years and years, right? I mean, he's an MMA grinder. I don't know. I don't see Chase Hooper getting a hold of him and controlling this fight. Maybe he will.
I agree.
What do you say in your title? Go ahead, Kek. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Tell your thoughts here.
You guys hit it pretty much on the head. I mean, it's a grown man against a boy at the end of the day. I mean, Chase Hooper is 21. He's going to probably make improvements on his striking as the years go on, and that if it gets to the ground, I mean, yeah, he's a problem for anyone. He has very good BJJ, but getting it to the ground, he has a 9% takedown accuracy. He's just not strong enough to get it to the ground. He more so relies on Steven Peterson pretty much has to beat himself and follow it to the ground or fight a dumb game.
And he might.
Which you never know. Exactly. He definitely could. But I mean, and what I love about this fight too is DraftKings priced it at 8,400 Peterson, 7,800 Hooper. You look at the inside of the distance number for Hooper, he's plus 180. He's gonna be one of the higher owned value tier guys because of that upside, and people are just looking at Vegas. There's no way I'm playing a chalky Chase Hooper getting overweight on him. My favorite bet, if I did make a little bet in this, Steven Peterson by decision plus 210. The one thing Chase Hooper does have is he has a chin. I mean, he's been hit hard multiple times, and he just takes them and keeps fighting. So I think this is more of an underweight fight for me. I mean, if you look at the Luigi Vendramini fight last 8,300, 7,900, this fight 8,400, 7,800. We'll get to another mid-tier fight and stuff, but I'd much rather target that other fight. And this fight is supposed to end inside the distance according to Vegas, so it's definitely going to have some ownership. I'm with you. I just can't play a Chase Hooper that's going to be owned. I just can't do it at this time. His striking is probably the worst in MMA. He has one path to victory. He has to get it there. Give me Steven Peterson by decision at plus 210 and underweight on this, but it's going to be a sweat, because if it does hit the ground, you are definitely holding your breath and scared. I mean, we saw him he was down 2 rounds to none last fight. In the third, he gets it to the ground and he submits him. So yeah, I'm with you though.
I don't mind that look at all, Title.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Hooper's tough for sure. He has a chin. So
I want to know how fast Steven Peterson signed on the dotted line when he got this fight offered. Joey Werk, actually, he interviewed Steven Peterson. I remember I watched it. It was before he knew the fight was coming, but he couldn't announce it. But just hearing him talk, I mean, he was talking about how he's been in fights since he was a little kid, just outside brawling and all. I mean, has Chase Hooper been doing that outside bar fights and I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm taking the under 0.5 Chase Hooper bar fights.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And Steven Peterson, and something to note as well. Steven Peterson did miss weight by 3.5 pounds. I mean, if that might make it a little harder for Hooper to take down a little more weight. I don't know. Maybe it's Peterson gassing. I'm not looking too much into that, but I did want to mention it. But yeah, Peterson by decision plus 210. I think there's some value there.
I love rooting against Chase Hooper, and that'll be the case again for this fight. Let's go to the next fight on the card. We have Frevola and McKinney. Frevola coming in here, a decent favorite for this card. This card has mostly pretty close lines. There's a few big ones later on, but Frevola minus 210 to 215. Again, make sure you're shopping if you're betting these fights, because the lines do vary a decent amount depending on where you look. This should be a good fight. I think I'm kind of excited for this one. I think you can target it for DFS to some extent. Both these fighters fairly well-rounded, right? We could see some wrestling from both on the feet, decent striking. I like these guys both to some extent. I don't think either guy's a world beater or anything like that, but I do expect a good competitive fight here. I do lean Frevola. I don't know if I'm want to lay that 210 though. Keg, your thoughts here on Frevola and McKinney?
Yeah, this is the only fight on the card that I didn't really dive deep into, because Frevola was supposed to fight Frank Camacho. Camacho got into a car accident. The fight gets pulled. And in that fight, I would have been on Steamroller. But now that the fight's off, it's a stay away spot, because I didn't have the time to pull the tape on Terrence McKinney.
Okay.
So I really don't have much here.
Title, your thoughts here then.
Yeah, Terrence McKinney, his last 3 fights, he's all finished in the first round. He comes out very, very hot. He has power. He's fought some solid competition too. He fought on the Contender Series, and he got beat by Sean Woodson. But, I mean, we just saw with Sean Woodson, he just fought last week in the UFC, a very long, rangy striker. And Terrence McKinney, he had some success in the first round before getting kneed and ended up folding. But he's fought good competition. He actually fought last Friday in LFA. So you got it. Last Friday, he's been expecting people have been calling for him to be in the UFC shortly rather than long. So, I mean, this isn't some bum that they just pulled off the street that they're just feeding to the dogs. This guy, but the thing is, he is a first round guy. I think after it gets to the first round, Frevola will take over, and Frevola has very good wrestling, good top control. That's where I expect him to try and take this fight, whereas McKinney's going to want to keep it standing, use his power. It's a very good fight to target for DFS. I mean, Frevola is 8,900. This fight's minus 225 to end inside the distance. So if Frevola does win this fight, you expect him to use his wrestling a lot, top control, and then finish this fight late probably, because even though Terrence McKinney did fight last Friday and stuff, I don't think his gas tank's nearly on the same level as Matt Frevola's is. Whereas Terrence McKinney, 6,900, he is, I mean, we talked about Luigi Vendramini. He has 6,900. He has a first round finish upside. And if you get a finish at that price tag, it'll get you the top guys that we'll talk about later that have a lot of upside too. So this is a fight I definitely want a lot of exposure to. As far as betting, I wouldn't bet Frevola minus 225 to start. If anything, it's a live betting opportunity, I think, because Terrence McKinney definitely could win round one and have and be up 1-0 on the scorecards. Then you get a minus 160, minus 150 for Frevola or something. Then you hop on that for live betting. But DFS, it's a very, very good fight to target. Clash of styles, and it's one of the most exciting fights I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. Should be a good one. I think the line seems properly set. I don't really have a strong lean there, but I'm with you, Title. I think for DFS purposes, looks like a good one. I think you can take either side of it, right? McKinney clearly the live dog, and then Frevola. I do think Frevola has a path to a pretty big score, even if it's by decision, right? And Vegas certainly thinks this one will end inside the distance, which obviously is the kind of the optimal outcome in most scenarios. We'll go to the next fight on the card. That's Kianzad and Alexis Davis, the first women's fight on this card. We do have Kianzad, decent favorite here. She's minus 200 to minus 210 roughly. I kind of like her a little bit, even at that price. She's a younger fighter. It looks like she's watching the tape. I think she's got the better all-around game and certainly the better striking. So I like Kianzad a little bit here. Keg, your thoughts on these two women?
Yeah, I still think that this line is probably still a little high. I like Penny as a fighter, but I feel like she probably still has to refine her skills a bit more. To be fair, her only 2 losses that she's taken since her debut on The Ultimate Fighter has been Macy Chasson and Julia Avila, who are 2 really tough girls. So I don't fault her for those losses. She strung a few wins together in a row. Betchka Hayasard, Eubanks, Jesse Rose Clark, but I don't think much of any of those women, So we know what Panty is. She's progressed her striking to the point where it's solid, but not great. She still eats way too many counters in exchanges, and that's mostly because of how heavy she tends to strike off her lead leg. So her striking defense leaves a lot to be desired for me. On the flip side, Alexis Davis, she had lost 3 in a row, and then she gets an impressive win over Sabina Mazo. We know that Alexis Davis has a wealth of experience, 30 fights in her career. Half of them are either in the UFC or Invicta. She's not a great striker. Her leg kicks are probably her best attribute in the stand-up game by far. She averages 1 takedown per 15 minutes, though. And Panty likes to clinch up when she fights. So I think that Panty's a better athlete, but it wouldn't shock me to see Davis get into the clinch and get a couple trip takedowns. So listen, I think that Panty Kianzad wins the fight. Okay. Yeah. But I think that the line is a little high. So if you're gonna bet her, you take her by decision at -120. I think that's probably the way that you go. Yeah. And avoid the money line altogether.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just think Panty, she does throw a lot of volume, and I do think she's a pretty decent striker. And like you said, Alexis Davis, like Panty kind of throws caution to the wind a little bit when she's fighting. And like you said, she does leave herself open to counter punches. I just don't know if Davis has enough power in her hands to really make Panty be scared of that, right? Like, I think she can kind of go forward a little bit, throwing caution to the wind and not worry about taking a counter. And that's kind of how Panty, I think, likes to fight. So I kind of like this fight for her stylistically. Again, she's much younger, less wear and tear, and I think she's got a good chance to land a lot of punches, I think, on Alexis Davis. So
good.
Yeah, I mean, she's expensive title for DFS purposes, 8,800, kind of a hard price to swallow, for a fight that, probably won't get finished, especially with so many top end fighters on this card. You got 3 5-round fights. So I don't know if I can get there, but I do think Panty wins this fight. And, I have taken a little smidgen at -200. Your thoughts here, Kianzad and Davis, Titletown?
Yeah, for DFS, I mean, I'm not paying 8,800 for Panty Kianzad on this card. She's plus 685 down inside the distance. There's no reason to. So that's an easy fade for that. And then Alexis Davis, kind of like what Keg said. I mean, her path to victory is getting the takedowns and top control. And at 7,400 is a live. I mean, I think she's a live dog. It's a woman's fight, not the highest level in a fight that's supposed to go to decision. If she does get the takedowns and top control, we've seen that score. I mean, last week, it was one of the most boring fights with Roman Delice, and he scored 86 points with control time. And that was even on the fence. That wasn't even, but
I hate those when they just lay and pray and get in like the top DFS lineups.
Exactly. But I mean, we have to take advantage of it for DFS. And 7,400, if I'm only making 1 or 2 lineups, she definitely is not the highest ceiling dog. She wouldn't be in there. But if you're making 20 lineups or 150ing, she's a live dog. She has a path with takedowns and control time, a $1,400 price difference. So yeah, give me the dog and Alexis Davis for DFS. I just can't pay that price at 8,800.
Makes sense. Let's go into in my opinion, a more exciting fight here between 2 up-and-comers, and one that I'm really excited to see who comes out ahead on this one. Hakeem Dawodu and Movsar Evloev, both guys undefeated in the UFC, right? Evloev 4-0, Dawodu, if he's not undefeated, he's at least won his last 5 fights in the UFC. Evloev is undefeated in his career, has won all 4 of his fights by decision, I believe. But has fought really well. Like, they haven't been particularly close fights. If you look at the striking numbers he's putting up compared to what he's taking, that's impressive. He can take the fight to the ground. Just a very, very well-rounded fighter, in my opinion, and one that I'm excited to see fight here. He is a -200-ish favorite. Keg, your thoughts on this fight? This is one, of all the fights we've talked so far, this is the one that I'm most looking forward to so far.
Yeah, I agree. I like both these kids a lot. They're both entering their prime. They're both really good at what they do. and I'm excited for it too. Mavsar Evloev is a grappler first and foremost, but he's not just a solid grappler. He is elite, and he could basically have his way on the ground with probably almost the entire 145-pound division. So I think Evloev's striking is slightly underrated. It's not elite, but I think it's solid. He's got an endless gas tank where he can go 10 rounds if he needs to. And he's one of my favorite prospects currently on the roster.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Hakeem Dawodu is another phenomenal prospect. He's exciting, and he's an explosive striker. Like you just said, he won his last 5 fights in the UFC. And, you know, he had an impressive performance last time out against Zubair Tukhugov. So I think, you know, he's got a solid top control game if he can get you down. And to be fair to him, he's been taken down multiple times in the UFC, but nobody's been able to hold him down and keep him on the mat. Now, unfortunately, the rub is Evloev isn't a normal grappler. He's elite. So I think Hakeem might have some problems getting Evloev off of him. So, you know, this is going to be the coming out party for one of these two guys.
Yes.
You know, if Evloev dominates Hakeem Dawodu, it's a statement. If Dawodu drops Evloev, it's also a statement. So I lean that the grappling wins the day here, and Evloev wins. But from a value perspective, I think the value is 100% on Hakeem Dawodu. Earlier in the week, you were able to get him at about plus 210, but now we're starting to see the line slightly drop, somewhere between like plus 180, plus 190 out there. But I think that Dawodu is the value side, but I edge Evloev wins the fight.
Yeah, let me ask you a couple follow-up questions to that. To me, if Evloev is not able to get this to the mat, right, and we have seen some pretty good takedown defense from Dawodu over the course of his his UFC career, 85% takedown defense, and like you said, he's gotten back up for the most part when he has gotten taken down. Do you feel confident that Dawodu can outstrike Evloev if it stays on the feet?
Yeah, I do. Personally.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. And let's not forget that we're in a
I do too, but yeah.
We're in a regulation cage now. So we're not at the apex where the cage is 5 feet smaller. That's always going to favor the striker in that situation, right?
For sure.
So yeah, I think if he stuffs the takedowns, it's his fight to lose.
Yeah. I agree with you. Just wanted to make sure we're on the same page on that part of it. Titletown, for DFS purposes, Evloev coming in 9,200 and nice price on Dawodu if he's a live dog like I think like Keg thinks, just 7K. And you know, I know Evloev's been very, very strong so far, but I think Dawodu is dangerous enough on the feet where I think he could finish this in perhaps it would be a little bit of an upset, but spectacular fashion, right? And maybe make his way into an optimal type DFS lineup. So your thoughts on this fight, Title?
I'm not quite as sold. I think Movsar Evloev is the better fighter all around. This guy's just relentless. His cardio, his pace. I do think he will get some takedowns. And I mean, Dawodu's going to have to. Dawodu's definitely a good striker for sure, but he's going to be in the back of his head having to worry about the takedown so much. And as Keg mentioned earlier, we've seen striking improvements from Movsar Evloev every time out. I mean, this guy he's not a bum striker by any means. He can strike to then get in the takedown to the clinch and then work that way. But it's plus 180 to go to decision. I don't think Dawodu knocks out Evloev. I don't think Evloev finishes Dawodu. And so I think it's going to be a Evloev decision more so with wrestling, which, yes, on a normal card, maybe on one main event, 5-round fight, I would take him. But 9,200 on a card where we have Adesanya, Jamal Hill, Leon Edwards, Figueiredo. I mean, we'll get to the guys, but you need a really big score at this price tag. So it's going to be a fight. You can't play everyone. You got to make fades. I'm going to fade this fight, expecting a decision, hoping it's Movsar Evloev by decision. And if he scores even 90 points at 9,200, I mean, that's a solid score, but I don't think 90 on this card at 9,200 is going to be enough. So I'm more so looking forward to this fight in real life for the division. Two very, very solid guys, more so than DFS. But yeah, Dawodu is live. There's no doubt about that. I just think Evloev is the better all-around fighter, going to get into his wrestling and then make Dawodu think in the back foot so he can't throw as much.
Yes, I was kind of surprised this fight wasn't leading off the pay-per-view card. I think it would have been a good fight for that. And I do think whoever, emerges from this fight, assuming they do so in impressive fashion, going to take a big jump up the rankings in their next fight, right? I think both these guys are probably ready for a step up. And this is a step up in competition for both of them. But whoever comes out on top here going to be looking real strong in terms of a prospect in this division. Let's go on to the next fight, another women's fight. We got Lauren Murphy and Joanne Calderwood. Just Calderwood coming in is just kind of a slight favorite, -130 to -140. These fighters seem somewhat similar to me, just kind of unspectacular, kind of grinder type fighters. I don't really see a great fight going down here, to be honest. Keg, you have anything on Calderwood and Murphy? Because I don't really have much of a hot take for this one, to be honest.
Yeah, just quickly, somebody in the chat says, how do you bring up Alexis Davis without mentioning that she knocked out Amanda Nunes? Because Title was 13 years old when she
it's so irrelevant.
It has zero bearing on the fight tonight. That's why. But anyway, yeah, I'll tell you what, Draftcheat, I've gone back and forth on this fight all week, man. I find it a tough fight to call. JoJo has been so inconsistent. Sometimes she looks great, and sometimes she's a major disappointment. And on the flip side, I've never really been 100% sold on Lauren Murphy either. But I do have to say, I've been surprised with how good that Lauren Murphy has looked since the move down the flyweight. For people that don't know, she basically spent most of her career as a bantamweight, but since she dropped that decision to Caitlin Chukagian back in 2016, she dropped the weight class and she's had a solid streak. She's won 5 of the last 6 fights, and it looks like the winner of this fight probably gets a title shot against Valentina, because Valentina absolutely, dismantled the entire division. Lauren Murphy, we know what she is. Most of the time, it's more grit and determination rather than actual skill when it comes to Lauren Murphy. But she's going to try to get the fight to the ground. She's going to try to use that top control in jiu-jitsu and try to pull out a decision. I'm a big fan of JoJo Calderwood, even though she isn't the most consistent fighter. I think that there are multiple things that she does better than Lauren Murphy. She's long. She's got a really solid range striking game. As long as she can stay on her feet, I think that she wins the fight. The question is, can she? Now, full transparency, I bet Joanne Calderwood about a month ago at -113 because I think she has such an edge in volume that she's going to throw probably in the fight, that I thought that there was value on it. Right now, she's in that -150 range. So I think that the value has probably passed you by at this point, but I'm going to say JoJo Calderwood gets it done.
Fair enough. Title, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Keck couldn't have said any better. It's a clash of styles at the end of the day. JoJo Calderwood wants it on the feet, and if she can keep it on the feet, she throws over 6 significant strikes per minute, which is insane if you really think about it. She scored over 90 in a 3-round decision win multiple times because she lands over 100 significant strikes. Lauren Murphy, she doesn't want to stand at range with her. She needs to get this fight to the mat. And if she does get this fight to the mat, I do think she will have some success and probably control her most of the round. I mean, I haven't been too impressed with Calderwood's game on the back and her get up game. So at the end of the day, though, it's an 8,200, 8,000 fight for DFS. And I do lean Calderwood, and I like her ceiling and her floor more because of those 6 significant strikes per minute. So give me the 8,200 Calderwood, hoping she's smart. I mean, you've planned the whole camp. You know what Lauren Murphy's trying to do. You got to think and hope that she is good enough to keep it on the feet. She's very, very good in the clinch as well, but I'm not necessarily sure this is the fight she wants to stay in the clinch because of the trips and the risk of getting taken down. But give me Calderwood in this fight. Give me the volume. I mean, you can easily, I think it goes to decision too. So That's why I'm going to take the person that I've seen throw over 100 significant strikes. And that price tag, you might get a 95, 92 point win. And at 8,200, you want that. And as far as Lauren Murphy, if you're 150 and stuff, you can play her for top control. But if you're only playing a couple lineups, even 20, I don't think you go there. I like JoJo Calderwood in this one too.
All right. Yeah, I do kind of lean Murphy mostly because the women who wrestle seem to kind of have a lot of success keeping it down there if they get it to the mat. I don't know. Have the data on that, but it seems like a lot of the women UFC fighters kind of struggle to get off their back. And you'll see a lot of top control at times. You'll see a lot of rounds finish with one of the women on their back. So I guess that's kind of the way I see it with Murphy, but it's not a strong lean. And, I could see it going either way. So no super hot takes from us there, but it sounds like you guys are on Calderwood. I lean Murphy a little bit. Let's go to the next fight on the card. That is Eric Anders and Darren Stewart. Should be a good one here, I think, against two guys who are probably going to throw down. I could see a KO coming in this fight. They did just fight. It was ultimately ruled a no contest. Keg, what do you think of the rematch here?
Yeah, we have the benefit of hindsight here, right?
Yep.
They're locked in the cage together already. Now, the first time they fought at 185 pounds, tonight they're going to fight at 205.
Why is that? Is there a reason for that?
Honestly, the way that Darren Stewart's been talking in interviews, it seems like the last thing the guy wants to do on earth is cut weight.
I wonder if they're both just like, yeah, let's just move up a class. I mean, neither of us has to cut weight. Sounds good to both of us. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure why, but, is a lot going to change here? I don't think so. You can make the argument that maybe Stewart's chin will be better this time around because he doesn't have to cut weight. But you never really know until you watch them fight at that weight class. So for me, the fight comes down to value, right? Eric Anders looked good against Stewart the first time that they fought, and he might beat that ass again, right? But my problem is that the first time that they fought, Anders was a plus 150 underdog. Now he comes in, he's a minus 160 favorite. That's over $1 value lost. Just because, Anders looked good in that first fight that time, right? So Do I think that he probably gets the job done tonight? Yeah, he probably does. But if I didn't bet him at plus 150, I'm definitely not backing him at minus 160. Yeah. So yeah. I'll lean Anders wins the fight, but my money won't be on this fight.
Title, your thought here, Anders and Stewart?
Yeah, this is one that I have interest in DFS for sure. I mean, we saw the first fight went around at 185. Now 205, you're expecting them to have more power. Something to note with Darren Stewart too. He didn't have a full camp. His last time out, he was in a makeshift kind of camp. So I know he used that as an excuse a little bit. It sounded like I'm expecting a better Darren Stewart. On the feet in the first round, I mean, Darren Stewart hurt Anders a little bit early. Anders recovered, and then he hurt Stewart and just put it on him. Eric Anders also has the better wrestling background. I expect him to shoot for more takedowns, which could result in more top control and ground and pound, which I do like for DFS. I think the best bet in this fight, it's only even money to end inside the distance. I do see this fight ending inside the distance. Two guys with a lot of power. Yeah. And we've seen when Anders clipped him, he was relentless. The fight could have been stopped too. And Herb Dean let it go on, and then the legal knee came. He was on his way to finishing that fight. Minus 150, I mean, as far as a betting perspective, this line just feels so fishy. We just saw Stewart get absolutely dominated. But as Keg said, he was an underdog in the first fight. So it's a fight in DFS. This is why I do like to MME, because I can get both sides of some fights that I do think ends inside the distance and are pretty close. It's a fight that I have interest in for sure. 8,600 for Anders definitely has upside for that price, and 7,600 for Stewart. That's $1,000 savings in a lower tier where you want upper tier fighters later, and he has upside for this price tag too. So I do lean Anders, but it definitely could be some recency bias from what I've seen. It's a good fight in DFS though. I think betting ending inside the distance at even money is the best bet.
Yeah, it can be hard to you watch that first fight and I think the natural inclination is to think that the same thing's going to happen again, right? It's just not really how sports work, though. I mean, you see it in the NBA, right? There's like the zigzag theory in the playoffs where you bet one side, you bet the other. They make adjustments, and
except the Suns. Except the Suns and the Nuggets.
Don't get me started on. So I knew you had to get one Suns versus Nuggets jab.
It's all I needed. You set me up.
Yeah, I knew that was coming as soon as I mentioned the NBA. My mistake there. I left myself open to a counter punch, and you took it. Credit to you. But yeah, I could see this fight going either way. I don't mind, especially in on DraftKings taking Stewart at 7,600. I do think he's a live dog, and I think he could finish this one inside the distance. If he does, probably going to be a good guy to have on your roster. Let's go to the next fight. Another one I'm pretty excited about: Drew Dober and Brad Riddell. Riddell 9-1, 3-0 in the UFC. He did win all 3 of his fights by decision, and then Dober been a financial boon for me. I've been riding him for most of his fights. He did come off a tough loss against Makhachev, where he really had no chance in that fight, right? He just got controlled the entire time. I don't really think that fight has anything to do with this fight. And I've liked what I've seen from Dober on the feet. I think he's constantly improving. And I'll back my guy Dober here to kind of rebound after that tough loss. I expect him to be back out there, kind of back to his usual self. He's got a lot of power. You see kind of the average fight time for Dober. It's very low for a lightweight fighter. I think he's got a chance to end this one early, frankly. And I like Brad Riddell too. I think he's a good fighter, but I'm going with my guy Dober here. Dober, I think he's a slight favorite, if I recall correctly. Yeah, -140 to -150. Keg, who you got, Riddell or Dober?
Let's go, Draftcheat. Let's go. All right, so potential fight of the night for sure.
Yeah,
I'm a big city kickboxing guy. I love them all. Izzy, Volkanovski, Brad Riddell. I tend to side with that gym more than I go against them. Mm-hmm. But in this fight, I'm going against him. I like Brad Riddell. He's looked solid since he joined the UFC. Not great, but solid, right? You can make the argument that he might have lost that fight against Magomed Mustafayev, but kudos to him. They gave him the win there. Solid striker. He tends to fight off that counter check hook like almost always. It's basically all he does. But the problem in always fighting off that counter is sometimes you get clipped. And there have been a couple times where Riddell has been slightly hurt in the cage. You've seen him wobble a little bit. So, he's a notorious slow starter. He's an explosive fighter, but he almost always gets out of the gate slow. And that's a problem because Drew Dober is probably one of the fastest starters in the entire division.
Striking's clean, man. Dober's striking's underrated.
I am a Drew Dober mark. The evolution of Drew Dober's striking game over the last 36 months has been a beautiful thing to watch. He's turned into a very good striker. And he's always got that power double leg takedown in his back pocket if he's not getting the better of it on the feet. So, normally the only thing that concerns me when I bet on Dober is his takedown defense. Yeah. Like you just said about Makhachev. That is not a problem to be worried about in this fight.
Yeah, we don't think so. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I, at the end of the day, Dober is way more tested in the UFC fire against way better competition. So how I approach this, and this is actually on the spreadsheet, I think there's going to be bombs being thrown, and I know that these guys tend to not get knocked out. But I threw a half unit on Dober by knockout.
I have that too.
at plus 480.
Yeah.
But then I backed myself up just in case. And then I threw another half unit on Dober by knockout or decision at minus 130, just in case the fight goes to distance. So it's basically you're risking one unit. But yeah, give me Drew Dober.
Yeah, and speaking of betting DFS, of course, you can find all that information over at runpuresports.com on the betting side, which Keg and everyone else does a great job with, crushing it this year in UFC and every other sport. And then, Title, you wrote up the playbook for this card, which is, of course, DFS-centric. So we've got everything you need for UFC, MMA, every other sport over at runpuresports.com. Just another reminder, you can use promo code RPSHeater25 for 25% off your first month's payment. And if you're enjoying this show, consider signing up, or at least hit the like, hit the subscribe, so we can keep bringing you this free content. Title, tell me you're joining us on the Drew Dober train tonight.
Come on, Title.
Well, this fight, as Keg said, on any other card, this would probably be fight of the night. I know we're going to have a couple fights coming up. Brandon Moreno, Fig is going to be an absolute war. I mean, this still could be fight of the night. Yeah, Drew Dober striking is really, really good. I mean, if you sign on the dotted line against Islam Makhachev, you know you're a badass, because people don't want to fight Islam Makhachev right now.
I got to say, even like the weigh-in pictures and listening to some interviews with Drew Dober, he's good to go. He's not like depressed from losing that fight. He couldn't handle it, and he's fine. So I don't think there's going to be any, if anything, maybe it pushes him to kind of enjoy a striking battle even more. I bet he's ready to go and ready to get to work in this one.
Yeah, there's no shame in losing in Islam Makhachev, and it didn't seem like Dober's demeanor or anything. I mean, at the end of the day, he's one of the best lightweights. He could hold the belt, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. Yeah, this fight, I mean, two primary strikers, which Dober has to be happy for. Dober's striking is very clean. Definitely has a lot more power than Brad Riddell does. The one thing I am a little nervous about, Brad Riddell is not known to be a wrestler takedown, but I think once he feels the power early, he might have to try and shoot. And so if Brad Riddell is able to land the takedown, Drew Dober's takedown defense isn't the best. He's going to have to stuff him early. If he stuffs him early, I think he definitely has his way, and he throws bombs, like you said. Brad Riddell, he doesn't start the fastest, but he does have good cardio. He's going to try and put the pace on, but I'm with you guys where I think Drew Dober's power at the end of the day, Brad Riddell is going to feel it and be a little scared to come in and try and keep going and making it a war. But the thing on DraftKings, 8,500, 7,700, I do like Drew Dober more in this fight. Brad Riddell, I mean, in fight of the night, it's supposed to go to decision according to Vegas. So I'm still going to have some Brad Riddell in 20 entry max and stuff. It's going to be a high-paced fight. If he wins, you're expecting over 100 significant strikes, or he does get a takedown or some top control in a high pace. This is the highest paced fight on the card, probably. So I do have a little interest there. On FanDuel, he's only $11, whereas Drew Dober is $18. He definitely is going to be a lot more popular over there, but I'm with you guys. If I have to pick a winner, and for betting, the line is close enough at -148. I think Drew Dober is just a better all-around striker, has more power, and I could definitely see a finish. If there is a finish, it is going to be on Drew Dober's side. So 8,500, he has upside, and this could be fight of the night. This is going to be a lot of fun.
That's good. Dober mojo. I like it.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. I'll have a lot of Dober in DFS, and I got bets on all kinds of different Dober props. I think I could see Dober finishing this one in the first round. That's my official prediction. Dober first round KO. You can get a nice number on that if you want to kind of go for an outlier result there. That'll bring us to the main pay-per-view card, and it's a good one. I'm looking forward to all 5 fights on this card for different reasons. First one is a light heavyweight bout between Jamal Hill and Paul Craig. Hill has been very, very impressive striking so far in the UFC. Very high volume, almost 8 significant strikes landed per minute. That's about the highest number you'll see, and that's over 4 fights, so not exactly a small sample size there. Paul Craig, not a bad striker himself. I would expect him to get outstruck on the feet here if it does stay there. He's got some pretty good wrestling, though. 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. And Jamal Hill can be taken down. His takedown defense, in my opinion, is not the best. So I kind of see this one as a clash of styles. We'll see how it all goes down. We do have the odds in this one. Jamal Hill, expected to kind of pull this one out, a -250 to -300 favorite, depending where you look. Keg, what do you see between Hill and Craig here?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it on the head. Any fight that involves Paul Craig is a clash of styles, because you really don't see grappling specialists all that often in the light heavyweight division. The problem for Craig is, he'll be a menace on the ground once you're there. He'll choke you out. He'll snap your arm in half. But he isn't exactly great at getting you to the ground. His single leg and double leg takedowns are pretty weak. Trip takedowns in the clinch are pretty weak. So, if he does manage to get you to the ground, you're in trouble. But on the feet, I think Paul Craig is pretty much a train wreck. He throws wild and hard, but he's got zero technique, I think, and that includes his striking defense as well, which I think is also a shit show. Now, Jamal Hill is a really exciting prospect with a legitimate stand-up game, power in his hands. He's got pretty good accuracy when he throws. So far, from what we've seen, his cardio's held up pretty well. There are things I don't like about Jamal Hill's game. I think that his defensive striking leaves a lot to be desired. He leaves his hands way too low when he's exchanging. And when he fights a real striker higher up the rankings, I think that he's definitely live to get knocked out. But I don't think Paul Craig is the fighter to exploit that lapse in defense. So I think that Hill should have his way with Craig on the feet. And the main reason why I think he wins is because Paul Craig falls into this trap where he's willing to throw hands with better strikers for extended periods of time. And if that happens tonight, Jamal Hill probably puts him to sleep. So I'm slightly worried that we've never seen somebody challenge Hill and chain takedown attempts for 3 rounds before. I guess the Darko fight is probably the closest that we saw, but even still, I think Hill should recognize that Craig's only path to victory is to get him down and submit him. So, in terms of approaching the fight from a betting perspective, don't lay minus 300. Now, he was minus 340, so you're starting to see a slight steam on Paul Craig right now. But you can't lay even minus 280. You can't lay that on Jamal Hill outright, right? So throw that out the window. You either use Jamal Hill as a parlay piece in 2-fighter parlays to get the price down in the neighborhood between, even money and minus 125 with another fighter that you like, or you take Hill by knockout at minus 120.
I like that better. Yep.
Yeah. Either way you want to approach the fight, I don't have an issue with it. So yeah, I mean, Jamal Hill all the way for me.
I'm with you. I will say though, title, at least from a DFS perspective, I think Craig is a little bit interesting because I do think if he does pull the upset, right, it's either going to be probably by submission, perhaps early, or a lot of control time. And both those would lead to a big DFS score. He's 6,800. It's tough taking a fighter that you don't think is going to win, but we see weird things happen all the time. It's not like Jamal Hill's a prohibitive favorite, and Craig does have kind of a clear path to victory. I don't think he gets to that path, but he does have one at least. So your thoughts here between Hill and Craig, title?
Yeah, it's definitely a clash of styles, and Paul Craig does have a clear path to victory. That's why this fight's made. I mean, Jamal Hill, sweet dreams. He's one of the best strikers at 205. I think this guy has serious potential.
Yeah.
I mean, what he did to OSP too, he battled through adversity. His front leg was getting beat up the whole first round. But as he says, touch him up university, you start feeling his hands the more he connects. And he throws 7 significant strikes per minute so far. And it's a short sample, but he throws massive volume and his strikes hurt. I'm very, very high on Jamal Hill as a prospect in the future. I think this guy's going to be around for a long time. He's getting in Paul Craig's head. Paul Craig's a very nice guy, but I don't know if you've seen the weigh-ins, the face-offs, all that. Jamal Hill's a trash talker. He just loves to stand. He loves to bang. He knows what Paul Craig wants to do, but I don't think Paul Craig's going to be able to do it. I see Jamal Hill knocking him out actually in the first round. I just think there's too much of a disadvantage on the feet. And Jamal Hill's a real deal, I think. So at 9,400, and we're about to get to the 3 5-round fights that people do like the favorites in. I think Jamal Hill gets a little overlooked. He's not going to be low owned by any means or that, but Adesanya is going to be higher owned. Leon Edwards is going to be higher owned, stuff like that. And I think a first-round knockout is going to happen. So I'm going to be very overweight on Jamal Hill. Expect him to stuff a takedown early. And if Paul Craig tries to stand on the feet with them, it's going to be a short night. So give me Jamal Hill by first-round knockout in this one.
I like that call a lot. I like that bet too. And I'll have a lot of Jamal Hill. Maybe a sprinkling of Paul Craig just in case. But I think Hill is the way to go here. Next fight on the card, Belal Muhammad and Damian Maia, who has been fighting in the UFC for a very, very long time. We kind of know what Maia is. We have known for a long time what Maia is. A grappling specialist, right? One of the best BJJ practitioners that the UFC has ever seen. And it's so good that he just continues to stick around in the UFC. Not a lot of striking prowess from Maia. Muhammad coming off a no contest, fought Leon Edwards. He was getting pieced up a little bit. I think he was kind of clearly going to lose that fight. How did it end? Was it an illegal knee?
Eye pokes.
Yeah.
Bad one. Bad one.
Yeah,
too.
no, it wasn't. No,
not last week. Patrick. Not last week. Patrick and Mason Jones. It was a legit eye poke.
That Mason Jones call was infuriating, bro.
So tilted. I can't even. It was very. I'm still tilted.
Yeah. So, but before that, Muhammad has looked good, right? Like he got that fight for a reason. A very well-rounded fighter, a strong dude. And, I'm having a hard time seeing Maia get this one to the mat against Muhammad. I think Muhammad is just so much stronger than him and does have good fundamentals. So I like Muhammad to kind of piece up Maia here on the feet. But Maia fairly durable, and Muhammad, I don't think he has the most power in the world. So I'm not sure he's going to finish this one. I kind of like Muhammad to win this one by decision, kind of outpoint Maia. But curious what you have to think about this one. Keg, we see Muhammad a pretty decent favorite here, sitting around minus 220-ish, 220 to 240 most places.
Yeah, I wish that Damian Maia was on a less stacked card so we could appreciate his career. 14 years in the UFC. This could very well be his last fight.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't lose to anybody that isn't a contender. Since 2013, the only people that have beaten Damian Maia are Gilbert Burns, Tyron Woodley when he was in his prime, Kamaru Usman, and Colby Covington. That's 3 world champions, or 2 world champions and 2 number 1 contenders, right? So the rub is Damian Maia is going to be 44 years old in a few months. And in his last fight, Gilbert Burns finally shattered that jaw. And that's bad news for Maia historically. Once that chin goes, it tends to continue to go. So, if Maia only loses to the upper echelon in the division, the question is Belal Muhammad an upper echelon fighter in the UFC? And
I don't think he's quite there.
In my opinion, I think that Belal Muhammad is a legitimate top 10 guy. And he might not be Covington, Burns, or Usman.
I'll agree with top 10 for sure. Yeah, I don't think he's going to win a title though.
I think you're right. When I think of Belal Muhammad, he reminds me of Beneil Dariush. They're basically the same type of fighter in 2 different divisions, right? Belal does everything well. Solid striker, really solid wrestler, underrated jiu-jitsu game, really good fight IQ. And the guy's got probably, other than Colby Covington and Usman, the sickest gas tank in the division, right? So I think he should win the fight rather easily, probably by decision, because even if he cracks Damian Maia, like you just said, Belal Muhammad doesn't carry a ton of power. He tends to outwork his opponents with volume more than getting the devastating knockouts.
Yep.
Everybody knows that Maia is going to engage for 30 seconds and then try to grab that single leg to get the takedown. That's what he's done for 14 years. Will Belal give up that single leg takedown at some point? I think it's possible, but even if it happens, I don't see Maia being able to do that repeatedly where he can win more than 1 round, right? We're in the regulation cage. It's bigger, favors the striker. So I think you either throw Belal Muhammad again in a 2-fighter parlay with another fighter to get the price down, or you take him by decision at plus 120. I'm fine with either of those.
I like the Muhammad plus 120 decision call there. That's probably the way I would lean betting this fight. From a DFS perspective, though, title, what do you see going down between Muhammad and Maia? We do have Muhammad, one of the more expensive fighters on this card, at 9,000. Honestly, probably mostly a fade for me. I kind of see a moderately low scoring win here for him. Do you see it any differently?
No, I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. Damian Maia needs this fight on the mat, and Bilal Muhammad wants to keep it on the feet where he'll have success. And Bilal Muhammad, I mean, he just fought Leon Edwards. He had the main event shot. He is definitely he's an upper tier fighter. I agree. I don't think he's going to win a title or any of that. Leon Edwards, who is also very, very, very good, we'll get to, but he was having his way against Bilal. But Damian Maia, I mean, he's 43. And what I've started to learn in UFC and what we're seeing, these older guys, Jacare Souza, these older guys, it's hard to back them. I mean, the young bucks
you fall off a cliff very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, your whole body, and these young bucks are just, I mean, the speed, the strength, they're learning new tricks too. I'm not backing a 43-year-old Damian Maia against Bilal Muhammad, who's a very, very all-around complete mixed martial artist. And I agree with you guys where I don't think Bilal knocks out Damian Maia. I mean, worst comes to worst, he drops Damian Maia, and then Maia's laying on his back, inviting Bilal to get on top and get on the ground with him so he can use his jiu-jitsu, whereas Bilal would be smart not to go followed on the ground. So at 9,000, you don't want a 9,000 decision win in a 3-round fight on this card. I think it's Bilal by decision 2 plus 120. I definitely like that bet. Yep. And DFS, it's a fight that I'm not interested in, because if Bilal by decision happens, it's not a fight that's going to end up on the optimal.
All right, 3 for 3 on Muhammad there. Let's go to the 3 5-round fights. Talked a little bit about Leon Edwards. He was very, very impressive against Bilal Muhammad. Frankly, he's been very, very impressive in pretty much all of his fights. He's looked fantastic, and he will take on Nate Diaz, who has not fought in couple of years, back in 2019 against Masvidal, right, was his last fight. Diaz has some a very entertaining fighter, right? A crowd favorite. The crowd will be going wild in this one. Listen, I know Diaz has had some success, right? And he's a game fighter. He's going to be in there throwing. This looks like a really bad matchup for him to me. Edwards, just a pro, is clean striking. I think he's going to just have his way with Diaz. That's the way I see it going down. Certainly, that's the way it's being bet. We're seeing Edwards, despite Diaz being a crowd favorite, Edwards sitting anywhere between -500 to -600, the biggest favorite on this card. I think justifiably so. And, it's hard to see how Diaz is going to win this fight, at least to me. Keg, what do you think here between these two?
Yeah, Edwards is a better overall mixed martial artist everywhere, maybe with the exception of jiu-jitsu. But even then, Edwards' defense and awareness is good enough to avoid trouble there. I mean,
Diaz isn't getting this one to the ground, though.
I agree. Leon is levels above Nate from a striking standpoint.
Yeah.
Levels above Nate as a wrestler. Levels above Nate when it comes to fight IQ. And they're probably equal when it comes to cardio. So I really don't see a way that Edwards loses the fight. Nate Diaz is not a true welterweight, okay? He spent most of his career at 155 pounds. To go even further, he's never fought a true welterweight. In that Pettis fight, Pettis wasn't a true welterweight. McGregor is a true 155er. Even George, who fights at 170 pounds now, spent 2/3 of his career at 155 pounds. So this is the first time that Nate is fighting a true welterweight. Edwards couldn't make 155 on his best day. So I think that Nate's going to feel like legitimate 170-pound power tonight, and it's not going to go well. Also, I think that there is as good a chance that Leon Edwards ends the fight by knockout as there is that he wins by doctor stoppage TKO. Why do I say that? Because the Diaz brothers are
lead.
Yeah, they have an almost alarming amount of scar tissue on their face. It's the reason why Nate's bleeding from everywhere before the bell rings for round 2 in every fight, right? Yeah. Now, it got the best of him in the Masvidal fight, and I think it could very well get him again. Leon Edwards has incredibly sharp edges, man. His elbows are like razor blades, and he swings them with authority. I mean, look what he did in the Gunnar Nelson fight. So it could definitely happen tonight. My gut says Edwards catches Nate with a head kick at some point in the fight and drops him. That's what my gut says. For me, it's Leon Edwards by knockout, plus 145 next.
I really, really like that bet, and I like the reasoning behind it. The doctor stoppage thing, that gives you another significant out to win that bet, right?
Yeah.
Because Diaz is tough, he is durable, and you could easily see it. Like you said, he's going to be bleeding in this fight. He's going to be bleeding profusely from the face, and if Edwards is just piecing him up, and he's got nasty cuts all over, maybe the doctor kind of ends it early. Although they probably want to let Diaz finish the fight, right? Like, I don't think that it's going to take a lot to have that happen, but I do like that call. It does give it another out for Edwards to finish this one early. Title, you riding the Edwards train? I would assume so, but maybe you got a contrarian take over there.
No, it's Leon Edwards by whatever he wants. And I mean, granted, you could start with Nate Diaz. He's out of his prime. I mean, I'm not even sure what Nate Diaz we are going to get, but he gets no favors going against Leon Edwards, which I can see him fighting for the title relatively shortly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this guy, he's just a stud. I mean, Bilal Muhammad, I would have Bilal Muhammad over Nate Diaz in this fight too. And Leon Edwards was piecing him up until it was over. We were debating in Discord earlier this week. I was trying to get some money on. People were saying that Nate Diaz has a better chance to win this fight than Leon Edwards does to knock him out, which I definitely don't agree with.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard today.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to. People were saying that. I was like, all right, let's make a bet. If that's
absurd take.
Thank you, guys. That's what I needed to hear. Unfortunately, I couldn't get action on it. No one wanted it, but I Leon Edwards by whatever he wants, and I do think he finishes Nate Diaz at some point. This is a 25-minute fight. Nate Diaz, like you said, he hasn't been at 170. He hasn't felt that power. And this isn't just some welterweight guy. I mean, this guy might be fighting for a title soon. And Leon Edwards is about to make a statement. I don't know if Nate Diaz is here just for the payday, if the adrenaline and serotonin he wants back. I don't know what it is. Props to him. Crowds are gonna be loving it. Crowd should be into it, but I don't see him beating Leon Edwards. I like him to finish as well.
Yeah, 3 for 3 on the Edwards early finish. And again, you can get that KO, plus number there, Keg? I'm going to be hitting that one after
45, yep.
Yeah, after the show, absolutely. Let's go to the next fight, one that I think everybody's looking forward to. Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno 2. These guys did just fight in their last fight. It was an absolute war, right? So many strikes landed by both of these guys. Both guys showed ridiculous chins in this fight, and I kind of expect something of the same. Figueiredo is coming in a pretty big favorite considering how close that fight was. Figueiredo right around -180 to -210. He was, I think, a bigger favorite than that before these last couple of days, where it does seem. Reports are at least that Figueiredo had a pretty tough weight cut. He has missed weight a number of times in the past, and he kind of just there's like a, for those that don't know, there's like a period of time, right, where you can weigh in, and he had to go like to the very end of it to try to cut the weight. So I am a little bit concerned about Figueiredo's gas tank if this does go 4 or 5 rounds, which it obviously very well could. The last fight did. I will say this though, I think that to me was kind of the fight of Brandon Moreno's life. I think Figueiredo he's a different level athlete than Moreno is. I love Deiveson Figueiredo as a fighter. I just think he's just absolutely terrific. I think he's got more power. So I don't know. I'm a little bit torn on this one. Interested to hear what you guys have to say. Figueiredo, Moreno, I'll throw it to you first, Keg.
Yeah, so both guys take the first fight on 3 weeks' notice, right? On November 21st, Figgy beats Joey Benavidez at UFC 255. 21 days later, December 12th, he fights Moreno at the very next pay-per-view. Now, people that aren't really familiar with the sport will be like, what's the big deal? He beat Benavidez in 3 minutes and took no damage. That's true, but cutting weight drains your body significantly. Cutting weight 2 times in 21 days when you're as big as Deiveson Figueiredo to begin with to fight in this division, it's absolutely insane. That's the first factor that affected the first fight, and it only affected Figueiredo. The second situation is, and Dana White has confirmed that this is 100% true. The night before the first fight, Figueiredo gets a bad case of food poisoning. He ends up spending the night in the hospital before the fight. White said even the morning of the fight, Figueiredo was still in the hospital, and he ended up going from the hospital to the locker room to get ready for the fight. That's the second factor that affected the fight and only affected Figueiredo, right? So, now to transition over to tonight, early in the first fight, Figueiredo thought that he would use his power to just manhandle and knock Moreno out like he's done to basically every.
And he landed too, right?
He did. And we know Figgy has the most devastating power in the history of the flyweight division, right? So I can understand why he would have thought that, but it didn't happen. It ended up making Figueiredo incredibly predictable in that fight, and Brandon Moreno knew that. So in the second fight, it should be different. Figueiredo didn't really respect Moreno in that first fight, but by the end of the fight, he did. So this time around, I think that Figueiredo really has to respect that double jab that sets up everything for Brandon Moreno. And I also think this time around, he has to realize how heavy that Moreno is on his lead foot always. So, it comes down to, what was his power depleted in the first fight, or does Brandon Moreno have an unhuman-like chin? I tend to think that he was depleted and we didn't see the full Figueiredo power in the first fight. But I felt a lot better about this than before yesterday, because he did not look great on that scale.
No.
So is this another situation where he's slightly depleted and he doesn't come with this power? What I did was, when the line opened, I took Moreno at plus 230 instantly, because if you watch that fight, it by no means should he have been plus 230 at open. That's stupid, right? But the more I think about the fight, I think that this fight probably doesn't go the distance this time. And I think you could either bet the fight doesn't go the distance around minus 110, or I think I'll probably hedge slightly off my Moreno bet at plus 230 and take Figueiredo by knockout at plus 145 is probably the way that I'm going to approach the fight.
I like it. Really good points there about the, kind of a depleted Figueiredo in that last fight in their first match. And we could see a slightly depleted Figueiredo in this one too. But I think that's happened for a lot of his fights, right? He's obviously a guy that can kind of just barely make this weight class, and he always fights well. Even in the last fight when he was in the hospital, I would assume he's better off tonight than he was in their last fight in terms of just the depletion from the weight cut and all that. So hearing you talk about it, I kind of leaning more Figueiredo than I even was before. I was leaning that way anyway. I think he's, I don't want to say a class above, but I just think he's a more dangerous fighter than Moreno is. I think Figueiredo, in my estimation, is a very, very special fighter, right? Clearly the most power that we've ever seen from anybody at 125. Moreno, an excellent technical striker. He's obviously got a monster chin, but I don't think he's the truly, truly special upper echelon UFC fighter. I mean, ever. I think Figueiredo's up there kind of with some of the greats. I think he's that level of talent. So I will kind of side with the talent in this one and take Figueiredo around that minus 200, whatever you can get. And I do think he's got a good chance to finish this fight, because he's going to land clean on Moreno. It's just, no one can avoid Figueiredo forever. And I think maybe this time he's got a little more power, just hits him in the right spot, right? Just lands one of those in the right spot and maybe puts Moreno out. So Title, I'll throw it to you. Moreno, Figueiredo, what do you got here?
I mean, this is the fight I'm most excited for on this card. The first fight was just an absolute war. I was on Brandon Moreno the first time out because Fig closed at a ridiculous minus 445 the first fight at some books. And Brandon Moreno he's as game as anybody in the UFC. This dude's got a Hall of Fame chin, as he showed, all the toughness in the world, and the kid just loves to fight. But like all the points, I wrote it up in the playbook as well yesterday. All the points Keg made, I was on the same page about the food poisoning the night before. I thought Brandon Moreno's clear path to victory was survive the early rounds and Fig's power, and which I thought he could or had a chance to for the price. And then later rounds, I thought he would take over with volume and see Fig gas. Davis and Figueiredo did not gas in rounds 4 and 5 last fight, even close to what I thought he would. He actually looked good. And then you add on top of that he was in the hospital the night before with food poisoning. That, I mean, you expect a better Davis and Figueiredo this time around. Davis and Figueiredo doesn't like Brandon Moreno. He's not used to someone taking him to deep waters. I know it was a draw because of the nut shot. It would have been a 48-47 Figueiredo decision, but he's not used to someone doing that to him. He gave him a nice shove at stare downs. Moreno's just a nice, likable guy, giving hearts out and stuff, and Figueiredo doesn't like that. I think he's going to come in, and I hate to say it because Brandon Moreno is one of my favorite fighters, but I think this time around the power, the game plan, taking that fight on 3 weeks short notice too. I did hear that Moreno wanted this fight booked like a month ago or something, and Figueiredo's camp said no, that they wanted more time, which I think is very, very smart. You need a full camp, as you've seen how tough Moreno is. I bet under 4.5 at like plus money. I think it was plus 105 earlier in the week. That. I see now it's at minus 115. People are expecting the power to catch up. The weight cut definitely, this might be his last fight at 125. I would not be surprised. I mean, this weight cut kills him every time. And he had the buzzer beater.
Clearly has enough power for 135 too.
Yeah. I mean, him against Peter Yan. I mean, I would still be on Figueiredo to be honest. That's the weight that he should. But I mean, 125, if you can make it, he's going to come in 10 pounds heavier than 125 today. I mean, if he can make it, it helps. But this weight cut, you can tell, is really killing him. I just think the power at the end of the day is going to be too much. The gas tank, I'm not really concerned with anymore after what he's shown last time in harsher circumstances. I hate to do it, but I think Figueiredo puts out Moreno this time around. It could be round 1 or 2, but I mean, Moreno, I wouldn't be surprised if this goes. Moreno's got a Hall of Fame chin. He's as game as possible, but at the end of the day, 125 Fig, that's one of the best pound for pound fighters we've ever seen. So give me Fig and give me inside the distance this time around, but this is going to be a complete war. I'm so excited for this one.
Yeah, sounds like we're leaning Fig here for sure. Me and Title and Keg. It seems like you're kind of leaning that way as well. Yeah. And I don't Moreno, like one of his best aspects, like you said, Title, is a Hall of Fame chin. But then to say someone has a Hall of Fame chin, that means they're taking a lot of hard shots, right? Because you can't say someone has a Hall of Fame chin until you take enough shots to kind of prove that. That's not really what I want to bet on, right? Oh, we can take all the punches that the guy with the most power in the history of the division is throwing.
But he did fire, like he took them and fired. He was game as all game could be. I mean, it was, but can he fight a better fight than what he fought? I mean, he doesn't have the power to finish Figueiredo. I mean, he gave Figueiredo all the best shots he could take, I don't know if he can fight a better fight than he did. And that's what I opened the analysis was. I kind of think that's going to be Moreno's, like the best fight of his career. Maybe. I think everything clicked for him there, maybe including a slightly diminished version of Figueiredo. So yeah, give me Figueiredo in this one, but I absolutely cannot wait to watch it. Let's go to the main event of the evening. Then we've got Israel Adesanya and Marvin Vettori 2. These two did fight earlier in their careers. Adesanya won that one. Adesanya, of course, coming off the first loss of his career, went up to light heavyweight, lost to Jan Blachowicz in a 5-round decision, and kind of, didn't look that great. He kind of got worked a little bit, I thought, in that fight, but still impressive to go up to 205 and take him on. Adesanya is coming in pretty decent favorite right now, sitting around minus 250 most places. Of course, he is, kind of the undisputed middleweight king at the moment. But Vettori has looked really, really good lately too. Vettori, he's not going to be scared of Adesanya. He's going to come forward. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this one because, I was saying kind of before the last fight, I don't think Adesanya is unbeatable, and that was kind of proven, right? Like he great striking, but you can hit him.
So yeah, I don't know. I lean Adesanya here, but I'm not completely sold. I do think Vettori is live. Keg, your thoughts, Adesanya and Vettori here?
Yeah, I mean, the fight, if you strip the layers away and you rip it down to its core, it's two things. Like the first is the longer that the fight stays at range and in space, Adesanya has an overwhelming advantage because they aren't even on the same planet when it comes to striking. Adesanya's on Earth, Vettori's on Mars.
Vettori's got to come out firing here, I think.
So that's the first half, and it's Adesanya's mastery of range, his ability to control the distance. It's the accuracy and technique of his striking exchanges, and his striking IQ is unparalleled. His ability to read his opponent's reaction, figure out how to exploit it, implement the counterattack in actual real time is better than anybody's done it, probably at the very least on the current roster at 185 pounds, and maybe ever. It might be better than Anderson Silva. It's debatable.
Yeah, those are the two. I mean, that's the comparison, right? Adesanya and Silva.
And the second factor is the longer that the fight is spent in the absence of space, whether it's in the clinch or it's Vettori working for takedowns, it favors Marvin Vettori. And it's probably his only path to victory, grinding out a 48-47 decision. Because, we know Marvin has nothing for Izzy on the feet, but to be fair, where he's really flourished in the last 3 years since the first fight, it's been his power grappling game. In their first fight, Vettori, he wasn't half the grappler and half the jiu-jitsu practitioner that he will be tonight. And look no further than the Kevin Holland fight. He had 11 takedowns in his entire UFC career going into that Kevin Holland fight, okay? After that fight was over, he had 22 takedowns. He doubled his takedowns in one fight. So Marvin has made strides in his game, and we know that Jan Blachowicz just gave him the blueprint on how to beat him. But people need to realize that Jan was 35 pounds heavier in the cage that night when they fought. So
Vettori's going to outweigh Adesanya here too, though.
Yeah, but not by – he's not going to be 240.
Yeah, but Vettori is a very, very strong dude. He's got the power grappling game.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree totally. I just think at the end of the day, people need to realize that you're judging Israel Adesanya and his body of work at 185 pounds.
Yeah.
Vettori has looked great the last couple of years, but it's been against Andrew Sanchez, Carl Roberson, Cesar Ferreira, okay, and Jack Hermanson. It doesn't compare to the level of competition Adesanya's fought. I mean, he's making Paulo Costa, Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whitaker look stupid. Well, maybe not Gastelum, because that was a 5-round war, that version anyway. But yeah, so I think that the fight comes down to the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like in the first fight, Izzy banked the first 2 rounds easily. Vettori was 0 for 4 on takedowns in the first 2 rounds. After Izzy banks the first 2 rounds, Vettori was able to get Izzy down to the ground on both takedown attempts in round 3. So if Izzy banks the first couple rounds, it sets him up really well in rounds 3, 4, and 5. On the flip side, if Vettori can get him down in the first 10 minutes, it puts him on a trajectory to win a decision because Izzy's only going to get tired. So with all that said, I wish this fight was 2 years from now, where Marvin just had a little bit more time to get better, man. And he's an Italian kid. I'm an Italian kid. He could be the first Italian champ ever. But I just think that Izzy gets the job done. Now, I wouldn't tell anybody to lay the money line with Izzy at that price, but I do think he's either a safe parlay piece, or the problem is I really don't know. I think Izzy could stop the fight late if Marvin Vettori slows down and gasses out in rounds 4 and 5, or Izzy can win a decision too. So it's really hard to call exactly how it's going to play out. But I think at the end of the day, Adesanya is going to get it done. So I think he's a pretty safe parlay, D's.
Yeah, fair enough. For DFS purposes, you do get a nice price point on Vettori if you think he's a live dog here. I personally think he is. I think he can, Izzy doesn't have the most power in the world. I think Vettori can kind of probably wade through some of those strikes and get a hold of Adesanya. And if he does, I think Vettori can drag this one maybe to the mat and kind of do the Blachowicz thing. Title, Vettori 6,900, Adesanya 9,300. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, Adesanya is going to be the most popular fighter on the card in DFS. A lot because the name, it's the main event. And with that being said, I mean, we talk about Hall of Fame chins of Brandon Moreno. Marvin Vettori is very similar to Brandon Moreno, and he's got a Hall of Fame chin, and he's as tough in game as they come too. Can Izzy finish Vettori? Absolutely. If this fight does stay at range, his kickboxing is levels above Vettori's. His striking is, he could catch Vettori with the leg kick or with the head kick, or I mean, just end up piecing up for so long. But I don't think the likely outcome is Izzy finishing Vettori. I'm betting on Vettori's toughness to at least survive 5 rounds. And if that's the case, I don't think I know Israel Adesanya would not be a top piece to parlay for me at 275. I think Vettori is too live. I would rather go a Davison Figueiredo who's minus 225, a Jamal Hill who's minus 290, Bilal Muhammad who's minus 230. I think there's better value in those lines than a minus 275 Adesanya. However, with that being said, I think the likely outcome, I mean, people are going to talk about Jan in last fight. I don't think Vettori can take down Izzy like Jan as easy as Jan did. Jan stood and traded with him for 3 rounds and then waited till the 4th and 5th round to catch him off guard in the 4th for the takedown. Sure. And as Keg said, I mean, he was like 230, 235 on fight night. He was so top heavy where Izzy just couldn't get up and he was tired at the end. And then he did that in the 4th and 5th round, fought a very smart game plan. If Vettori does get takedowns, I know they fought in 2018. I don't think that really has much to do with today's fight, but Vettori did go 2 for 6 on takedowns, which is something to note. I think Vettori can get a couple takedowns. Can he control Izzy the whole round like Jan did? I'm not sure about that. Izzy's 82% takedown defense too, so I expect him to stuff some as well. He knows that's what Vettori wants to do. Vettori can strike, but does he want to strike at distance with Adesanya for 25 minutes? No, he doesn't want to. No. But at the end of the day, my pick is Izzy by decision. I think that's my favorite bet in this. In DFS, a decision in 25 minutes with when I like Jamal Hill, Figueiredo. I mean, we talked about Anders' fight and other fights too that could end inside the distance. He's going to be the most popular fighter on the card. I'm going to be underweight. I'm not going to full fade. I think that's completely dumb in a 25-minute fight with the striking credentials of Adesanya. But I think Vettori is he's live. I'm not going to throw Adesanya on a top ticket parlay. Vettori has a path. He needs the takedowns. I don't think he'll get them as easily as Jan did and stuff, but that price is too heavy and too steep for me. And with him being the most popular fighter in DFS, I like the top tier is so loaded. Edwards, Hill, all that. I'll just get more exposure there and fade one of the chalkiest fighters on the card. So it'll be a great fight. Adesanya by decision is my pick. But Vettori is live for sure.
I agree with you. I think that's good analysis on that fight and on all 14 fights on this card. We're all really looking forward to the fights tonight. I'm sure you guys are too. Thanks for listening as always. If you want the rest of our content for MMA, UFC, and otherwise, promo code RPSHeater 25% off your first payment. Works for monthly subscriptions only. If you haven't yet, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to get all of our content so you don't miss anything. And that will do it for us. I know we ran a little bit long, so we'll get on out of here at this point. Thanks for watching. As always, for Titletown, for Sports Keg, I'm Draftcheat. We'll check you next time.
Good luck, everybody.